we are looking at seasonal rules for next season. These are the Honor Guard rules. Sorry. Okay, so when we start 3rd edition, we're going to have these. So we can kind of think about them in terms of, you know, how the 3rd edition, or sorry, 4th edition is actually going to start, which is really cool. And I have to say at the front that these look super fun. I don't really know what I think about them yet. I sort of had a quick look over them, so I'm just going to kind of like think my way through them here and see kind of what's what. With, of course, help of Twitch chat. Did you see the other destruction battle tactics too? I don't know. You can always link me. Maybe? I don't know. Are there new destruction battle tactics? Like, I'm just sitting here playing Valheim. I don't... Just chilling. It's Father's Day. So I gotta have sushi for dinner. That's what that means. Oh. Okay, so let's have a look through these. So, Honor Guard. So they're all once per battle in the deployment phase. So you get to see who your opponent is and like kind of what their list is, and you get to see them put all the stuff on the thing. It's in the Kupla channel. They changed time to get stuck in. One more. Let's have a look. Okay. Time to get stuck in. So, how many are there total for battle tactics? For destruction? Is it 3? 2 per? But then didn't we see one already? Didn't we see one already? And didn't it, wasn't it not one of these? Time to get stuck in. Okay. Okay, so what do you mean they changed time to get stuck in? You mean this isn't the one that they spoiled to us before? Like it's been altered? Or is that what you're saying? Or are you saying that it got changed from 3rd edition? Pick 3 friendly units that are not in combat and are wholly within friendly territory. Okay. So 3 unit, like a unit of whatever. You can 3 units that are not in combat and wholly within your territory. So probably like a monster, like some kind of like Nash 2 Fulcha, something like that, and then like 2 gut ripper units, or like a gut ripper unit and a hobgrot unit. So like a monster or like a mounted thing, hobgrots and gut rippers. I think that's probably the most likely combination. It'll be hard, right. You complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if each of those units is wholly outside your territory and used a fight ability this turn. Okay, so this is, I think, harder for Cruel Boys than it is for Iron Jaws. I think for Iron Jaws, this is going to be a slam dunk. Because Iron Jaws have pigs and Maw Crushes, and they like to fight, and we'll see what their smashing and bashing looks like and what their Mighty Destroyers looks like and all that, but like just kind of what Iron Jaws is as an army. This looks way better. Because Cruel Boys... Like, we can get things out of our territory using... but they have to start within our territory. And it's hard for us to teleport them forward, to sneak them forward, and then charge. So that won't be a tool in our arsenal. Unless we get some kind of bonuses to charge, which I doubt we do. If we got any bonuses to charge, they'd be really strong. So I think it's way better for Iron Jaws than it is for Cruel Boys. The cunning approach. Pick an enemy unit. Yeah, right. So this is... There's like a Gorka Morka vibe going on. The cunning approach, right? Pick an enemy unit that is in combat and a friendly unit that is not in combat. You complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if that friendly unit that was in combat with that enemy unit this turn and the enemy unit was destroyed this turn. I read that and didn't understand a word of it. Pick an enemy unit that is not in combat. Okay. Something you want to kill, and a friendly unit that is not in combat. You complete this tactic at the end of your turn if that friendly unit was in combat with that enemy unit this turn, and that enemy unit was destroyed. Okay, so this is like charge with your gut rippas and shoot it with your bolt boys and remove it from the table. or charge it with a monster and shoot it to weaken it, and then kill it. Pick an enemy unit that is... Oh, never mind. Sorry, I'm having a hard time. Pick an enemy unit that is in combat and a friendly unit that is not in combat. So you like jump in and kill the thing. So it's like you got stuck in the previous turn with Gut Rippas and now you're going to charge in with something else and kill it. That's fine. This is really good for Iron Jaws too. Iron Jaws look like they're the winner here of these tactics anyway. Pick an enemy unit that is in combat and a friendly unit that is not in combat. You complete this tactic at the end of your turn if that friendly unit that was in combat... Sorry. If that friendly unit was in combat with that enemy unit this turn and that enemy unit was destroyed this turn. Cannon approach is fine. It's fine for Cruel Boys. It's fine for Iron Jaws. It's fine. It's totally fine for both. This is going to be like an achievable one for sure. For both. Time to get stuck in is also achievable for both, but I think both are more favorable for Iron Jaws than they are for Cruel Boys. Like, for example, the Cruel Boys ones that were good had nothing to do with fighting, right? Like, Sneak Up was just like, oh, be close to terrain. And the other one was, like, Take That, You Suckas was more like shooting with Bolt Boys, right? Just like deal a bunch of mortal wounds and take none. So it's like, it's shooting. So, I mean, that's good. Like, these are good. I like these. This gives me hope that we'll be able to actually achieve tactics. For Gits, these are probably both good for Gits, actually. I bet you that these are probably better for, like, Bounders and Hoppers than they are for anything else. Like, time to get stuck in. It's like, well, the units are really fast, right? So they're gonna, like, zip up the board and fight it and get in there and fight, right? So that's fine. It'll be squigs and a bunch of other stuff. As a technical writer, whoever wrote Cannon Approach. Yeah, you don't like it? Yeah. So that's good. I like this. That's good news. Right? That's all good news. The wording is atrocious. Yeah, sure. Okay, so awesome. Honor Guard. Once per battle deployment phase. Right, so each of them have like their flavor text, and then their declare ability is all the same. It says pick a friendly unit in your general's regiment. So your Honor Guard has to be in your general's regiment, and we don't really know what you can include in your general's regiment, right? We don't know, like, we don't know, but we know, the only thing we know is that your general's regiment can have 4 units instead of 3, and if you take things like Nagash and probably Kragnos, it also means that you can take heroes to be Honor Guard. So, and they all have this same declare thing, right? You can pick a unit in reserve. If you use this ability, you cannot use any other Honor Guard ability. So it's like, pick a unit, they can be in reserve, they have to be in your general's regiment, and then you pick one of these 3 abilities to use. So what are the 3 abilities? Effect. Pick one of the following weapon abilities. So it's on one weapon ability, or you pick one weapon ability for 1 unit. Anti-cavalry, anti-infantry, anti-monster, anti-war machine, and anti-beast. I don't know what beast is. I don't know what that word means, so that's interesting. But you just get +1 Rend. In any turn in which the Honor Guard charged, that unit's melee weapons have the weapon ability you picked. This has no effect on companions' weapons. In any turn in which the Honor Guard charged. Beasts, right. Thank you, JFK Space Race. Appreciate it. I have seen that before. It means that they can't, like, they can't control objectives or some stuff like this. They're, like, mindless, right? So they're not, like, useful in other ways for, like, purposeful things, right? They're like lesser monsters, almost. In any turn in which the Honor Guard charged, that unit's melee weapons have the weapon ability you picked. So it goes off the turn that they charge. So they're just going to get +1 Rend against 1 unit type, and if they charge in, they get the ability. Cool. So for Cruel Boys, they have to charge in, so it'll probably only go on Gut Rippas. It'll probably only go on Gut Rippas. Hey there, first time chat. Because I can't imagine it going on anything else. Just because, and then so suddenly Gut Rippas can have +1 Rend. So this would be good in Cruel Boys if your opponent has a whole bunch of a particular type of thing. Like if they have a ton of infantry, let's say, or a ton of monsters or whatever it is. They have to charge, which is too bad because the anti-cavalry would have been nice on Gut Rippas with +1 Rend if they got charged, like, you know, anti-charge plus or anti-cavalry charging you or whatever +1 Rend. That would have been nice. But they have to do the charging. So this one, again, I don't know. I have a feeling this one's going to be the weakest of the 3, but I still really like it. Remember, you get to pick this in deployment. Uh-oh. Right, this is a deployment selection. So you get to see your opponent's army before you get to make the choice. But if your unit gets charged instead of doing the charging, then it accomplishes nothing. Gnashtooth does seem like a good target. It doesn't, you don't get it on his mount, right? You just get it on the person. No, it's just the Gnashtooth itself, but the kill boss, you would get it. Right? And you're right, like he wants to be doing the charging, so if he was, for example, anti-monster, you could sort of set him up to charge in. But this is of course assuming a couple of things. One thing that it's assuming is that there's going to be a way. Could you pick the general? Because it says it has to be in the general's regiment. That is not your general, so this one couldn't be the general. So we'll see if there's like some general that lets you take heroes. Or in this case, specifically the Gnashtooth as a specific hero. So that kind of has to exist first, right? But if you get charged, you don't get the ability. So for Cruel Boys in general, that kind of hurts, right? Yeah, for Iron Jaws, it's much better. There's way more shenanigans going on with charging and everything, right? So it's like you can use your pigs and probably maybe use some like teleports or movement shenanigans to sort of get in. Like Iron Jaws have always had many ways of having pretty efficient charges, right? So that'll probably be a thing. So you can take a unit and make it like, you know, anti-monster +1 Rend, and then your opponent has like a Maw Crusher or a Snatch Boss, and you can be like, hey, I have this already game-long juiced up unit that's just waiting to like take some other buffs and you know, get yeeted into the monster and just... So it's pretty good, but again, if you get charged, it doesn't seem good. But Cruel Boys, this seems pretty mid. It seems pretty mid. If you could get charged and get these abilities, I think like anti-cavalry +1 Rend on Gut Rippas is legit. Probably not still legit. Probably still not that good. So this one I'm kind of lukewarm on. I've heard that there won't be allies, but I don't know where that person saw this. I've heard this from many people in many different places. I think it's probably true. It also, I feel, aligns with what Games Workshop is attempting to do with 4th edition, where they're going to streamline things. So if they're getting rid of things like Big Wah, they'll get rid of things like allies. It's coming from the same philosophical point. They're like, we want to like settle down all the interactions that are happening. We want to like sort of standardize everything and tone everything down and sort of in a sense like make everything kind of bland in a sense, and they are doing that, but I think it's a good thing. But that's what they're doing, and so allies is a, like I said, I've heard this from many different places, but it also just sort of makes sense in my head. Like, yeah, that makes sense that they would do this, right? That makes sense. Easier to balance. Well, you have units, for example, like Celestant Prime, which is a Stormcast Eternals unit. It has on its War Scroll, it has the Thunderstrike sort of thing, where it can sit in reserve for multiple turns and then come down. So other armies love it because it has its own Deep Strike, right? But so it's an amazing ally, and it punches pretty hard, and it has a guaranteed charge on the turn it comes in, so you can drop it 12 inches away and guarantee a 12-inch charge. and then it slaps and it flies, right? Like it's kind of this trick. Like I know Sylvaneth like to use it. I was gonna use it in Sylvaneth. I probably still could, I guess. 3rd edition isn't over, but no, I won't. So just like getting rid of allies. It's Marshcrawler, right? We have that Marshcrawler that is like a Gits unit, so it can't be a Gits unit anymore. It has to be an Orc unit, so we'll see what it actually does. Okay, so let's look at the next one. So that first one was called Special Assignment. So pretty lukewarm on that one. Priority Target. So the Declare has the same thing. It's the same thing. Pick a friendly unit in your general's regiment that is not your general to be the honor guard. You can pick a unit in reserve. You can't use any other ability. Effect, add 1 to hit rolls and wound rolls. +1 to hit, +1 to wound for attacks made by the honor guard that target any units in the enemy general's regiment. Okay. So the first one is like pick a unit type, get +1 rend if you charge against that type. Number 2 is +1 to hit and +1 to wound all the time. If they charge you, you charge them, whatever, against a unit, all the units in your enemy's regiment. Yeah, it doesn't even say melee. Add 1 to hit rolls and wound rolls for attacks made by the honor guard that target any units in the enemy general's regiment. It's Bolt Boys. Priority target is Stonks. Yeah. I have a feeling that Bolt Boys are not going to have mortals on 6s. I think they're going to have the auto wound on 6s. Which is going to be kind of liberating. I think it's going to be kind of liberating. I think it means that for dirty tricks that Venom Encrusted Weapons is less key, like all the time. Because if we have Bull Boys with crit mortals, then you just need to have Venom Encrusted Weapons up all the time. And that changes the way that, like, your game plan. If only, like, you know, other things can have it, then I think it'll make it more like it's okay if it fails. Anyway, but +1 to hit and +1 to wound on Bull Boys would be amazing. And it's any unit in their honor guard, so or in their general's regiment, which includes your opponent's honor guard. So this is +1 to hit and +1 to wound against all of your attacks against the general, their honor guard, and up to 2 other units. But at least those 2 things. This one is sick. The fact that it doesn't specify melee attacks. So, like, this is where, like, list building is going to be really interesting, I think, in 4th. Where you have, like, who you pick to be your general is going to matter because of the units that they unlock to bring with them. That changes who your honor guard is. And it also means that they can also, like, they can be the target of this. Like, I could see some players, for example, like, picking different generals so that some of their more important units are not in the general's regiment. So they're not getting +1 to hit, +1 to wound against them because of how important they are in the army, right? Crazy. Number 3, Bodyguard. Same declare effect. Subtract 1 from the attacks characteristic. Fantastic debuff of the enemy units' melee weapons while they are in combat with your general if both of the following are true. The honor guard is wholly within 6 inches of your general. The honor guard did not charge this turn. So if your honor guard charged in, you don't get this, but if they didn't, and they just kind of hang out, we'll see how easy that is to do. But this goes on a Sludge Raker or on a Maw Crusher. Think about how big a Maw Crusher is, okay? And how many units are going to be within combat range of it, just because of how large it is. And that also means that a unit of brutes, for example, even a reinforced unit of brutes won't have too hard of a time being wholly within 6 inches of the general. And the fact that you have a 3-inch fight means that you can go, like, into 3 ranks and still be fighting with every unit, like all of your 10 brutes. But -1 attacks is amazing, and the Sludge Raker is going to love this too. It's like, oh, like, I'm going to be behind the Gut Rippers, and so, if you get into melee with me, then you just get -1 attacks. Another great Cruel Boy's debuff this is going to be. I don't know which one's best. I think that Bodyguard might be better for... Bodyguard might be better for Iron Jaws. Although, I don't know, they're all good. I think the bottom two, though, are definitely better than the top one. To be honest, I think you're going to be picking Special Assignment the least. Probably if your opponent is spamming one of these things, like, oh, you're playing Thunder Lizards, fine. But it's only one unit. Like, only one unit is going to get +1 Rend if they charged. If they don't charge and get hit and die, then that's it. If Sledge Raker has an aura still, Bodyguard is maybe best. Because everything's going to be close to him anyway. Seems good. You might do some interesting stuff with Bodyguard. Charge with the General and leave the Bodyguard on the back 6 inches. Yes, you could do that. I think that becomes easier with a big model like Makrusha. Right? Because it's like, you know... Yeah, just because of math. Or it's also good defensively, too. Like, your Bodyguard can be Gut Rip is in front of a Sledge Raker, and it's like, if you charge me, you're getting -1 attacks. And Strike Last. And, like, it's one of those, like, here's, like, a thing. It's like, you take your Gut Rippers, and you're going to sneak them forward onto the middle objective, and then you're going to run up your Snatcher Boss behind him, give them the buff, give them Venom-Encrusted Weapons, give your opponent Noisy Racket and Lethal Surprise when they charge in, and they're going to have -1 attacks. It's like... The only problem with Bodyguard I don't like is that it doesn't it doesn't stack with the Choking Mist. Choking Mist gives the same debuff. But like the fact that it's not charged means that it's scarier to charge into them. So if you can set up like a pit and be like, "Come at me, bro," like. So maybe it is better for Cruel Boys. Maybe both of these are better for Cruel Boys. Bolt Boys with +1 to hit, +1 to wound might be the best thing here, though. It might be the best thing here. I feel like Cruel Boys are already looking really strong, and like Mortals on 6s will probably be too much. Like, they're trying to get rid of shooting from the game. From mortal wounds. They're trying to get rid of mortal wound shooting. Does it make any sense that they're trying to get rid of mortal wound shooting and they leave Bolt Boys with their 5-up and 6-up mortal wounds from range? And there's a sub-faction that's probably going to extend their range. Like, I'm feeling like they're just going to remove it. And Cruel Boys is going to play really differently, which is, I think, a really good thing. Like, I feel like the way that the whole army is going to play is going to change. I'm excited to play Cruel Boys again. It's been a long time. A long time since I've been actually excited to play Cruel Boys. Yes, this is all in deployment, so you get to see what your opponent has. If you didn't do this in deployment, the first one would be trash. It would be unplayable. But I think the first one is kind of trash. Like, I don't know when you take this unless you're... Pick a friendly unit in your general's regiment that is not your general to be the honor guard. They get +1 Rend against... So, like, if they don't charge the particular thing, they don't get +1 Rend. If they get charged by the particular thing, they get nothing. And it's only if they charge. So if they charge and then they get stuck in combat, they're not getting any benefit. Like, just in terms of, like, what this is actually going to give you, I think is really bad. In fact, I think I'm ready to say that Special Assignment is D tier, F tier, and not worth taking almost ever. It's not even good for Alpha Strike armies. It's just one of your units. Like, Rend is good. And it has no effect on companions, so it's like you put it on pigs, but really it's only +1 Rend to the guy to the orc on the top. Like, this will be super niche if you're like, I need to really kill that one thing. No, because if it's I need to kill that one thing, like, I need to kill that one thing, that has like, oh, I need to really kill that Sludge Raker, so I'm gonna give +1 Rend to, you know, pigs for monster. But that's bad because +1 to hit, +1 to wound all the time is better. So it's like, it's not the general, and it's not in their regiment, because if it was in their regiment, this is better. So I want to have to kill something that they have that isn't their general or in their general's regiment, and then I pick this, and then only one of my units can fight that unit to give it +1 Rend, or this one's better all of the rest of the time. Is it even decent for Alpha Strike armies? Because again, I feel like this might just be better for Alpha Strike armies. Because it's against multiple targets. You get the +1 to hit, +1 to wound against up to 4 targets. This is only that type. Right? So it could be multiple targets. But +1 to hit, +1 to wound is better than +1 Rend, maybe? And this is like, even if you get charged, and like, you know, and it's, I don't know. Closest thing to a sideboard, yeah. Sure. Gorgruntas. Does this include their mounts? Is it +1 to hit, +1 to wound for their mounts as well? Because this one explicitly says this effect has no, or this has no effect on companion weapons. This one doesn't say that. So if I give this to Gorgruntas, do the pigs also get +1 to hit, +1 to wound? And this one they get +1 to Rend, but not on the pig? That's how I'm reading this right now, right? So this is even worse, because +1 to hit, +1 to wound on the 4 attacks that come from the pig is better than +1 Rend on just the orc, for sure. I mean, I could do the math, but I don't feel like I have to. It sounds bad. If it was every unit in your general's regiment, I feel like that's how this should read. It's like you have your general with your dudes, right, with his regiment, and they all get +1 Rend on the charge against this type. Because then there'd be a lot more of it. So it's like, yes, you have to charge. The companion rule could stop the hit and wound, you're right. But it's weird that it says it says it here explicitly, and it doesn't say it down here explicitly. That's weird to me. We'll have to get some FAQs. So yeah, I mean, like, priority target. You're gonna be picking this in deployment, right? So let's say I'm a Cruel Boys player. Okay. Let's say my general is the Snatch Boss. My honor, so I get to pick my honor guard. When do I pick the honor guard? Okay, so I just pick it as part of this ability. So I can just pick either a unit of Gut Rippers to sit in front of the Sludge Raker, or the unit of Gut Rippers, I guess, that is I'm planning on sticking in front of the Sludge Raker. Maybe a big reinforced block. And then maybe like my Gnash Tooth is going to come in from the side and give them a +1 to hit. And then my plan is just to march up the middle of the table and absorb a charge and give them Strike Last on their turn and -1 to hit and -1 attacks and Strike Last and then just slap them back, or pick Bolt Boys and give them just +1 to hit, +1 to wound. I'll look at my opponent's list and be like, do I care about you charging into me? Like, are you Iron Jaws and you're really chargy and slappy? Or are you something else and I'm just going to use my Bolt Boys to pick you apart? Are you like a bunch of wizards in the back line and I'm just going to try to snipe you? And then you just pick the one that makes sense for you in that list. And I think the top one's just bad. It's like there's so many times when I could see like you getting nothing out of this, right? I like you get to pick, right? So okay, but what if your opponent has a really good mixed army? Then you don't pick it, right? If they have like 2 cavalry, 2 infantry, a monster, a beast, you're like, okay, well, like if my plan doesn't go exactly the way that I want it to, I'm not going to get anything out of this. Like I have to really charge my unit into your specific unit, or else I'm not getting anything. And if they're like all infantry, right, then I don't know what the +1 Rend does. It's like you charge them and like maybe you get it for 1 combat. Like is getting this for 1 combat good? If that's all you get? You just get it for 1 combat? How good is that? Maybe it's like alpha strikey, like you were saying. It could very well be like an alpha strike play. I mean, think about fulminators with that. Fulminators with +1 Rend. But again, it's like you have to make sure you charge, which I guess fulminators want to do anyway. But again, I could see if your opponent is spamming one type of thing. If you're playing against Thunder Lizards, right? And you're worried about that one big hero that they have, right? That one big hero. I'm trying to think off the top of my head what they're called. The names of those big heroes. But you get my point. Right? It's like, okay, well, I'm going to pick my dude and give him +1 Rend, and then I'm going to wait, and I'm going to get +1 Rend. And he has to not be in the general's regiment also. So they have to be spamming, and you have to want to kill something that isn't in the general's regiment. Because if they are in the regiment, I think this is better. Am I right? Like, +1 to hit, +1 to wound is better than +1 Rend, right? Especially given the fact that if you get charged, you still get this bonus. Like, that's the thing. It's like, this is good all the time. Right? This is sort of good, like, it's multiple targets, and it's always multiple targets. There's always going to be at least 2, but maybe up to 4. Right? And if you get charged, it still works. If you charge them, it still works. If you get stuck in combat and you're fighting for multiple turns, this still works. If you're ranged, this still works. So if you're at, like, a unit that has, like nothing really, we don't really have anything in orcs that does this, but like a decent shooting attack and decent melee, you sort of get +1 to hit, +1 to wound on both. Yeah, but this means you don't have to use all-out attack. And I think like command abilities in 4th edition are going to be significantly more powerful, and they're going to be harder to use, and you're gonna really feel like you're short on command points all the time. Is how it's gonna feel, because some of them are cost 2. Casting a spell in your opponent's turn is 2. Countercharge is 2, and so if you cannot use all-out attack, right? If you cannot use all-out attack, I think that's gonna feel a lot better than it did previously. Like getting +1 to hit in 3rd didn't really feel super great because we were like whatever, like. It's like, well, we have all-out attack, so we can just use that, right? But I think that +1 to hit, +1 to wound is going to feel significantly better, and not having to use all-out attack is going to feel a lot better. Special assignment, you'd have to have a unit that can literally kill almost anything on the charge. Well, yeah. Think about fulminators, like. Again, if they're not spamming a thing, like +1 to hit, +1 to wound against multiple targets, including your opponent's general, right? Don't forget this. You get to do this against the general. That target any units in the enemy general's regiment, including the general. +1 to hit, +1 to wound against the general and everyone in his regiment, no matter what, all the time. Instead of +1 Rend if you charge against a type. So this might go off once. This is going to go off every game. This is going to happen every time that you pick it. Maybe not every time, but the probability that you get value out of this is a lot higher than the probability. I can see special assignment in really niche cases. There's going to be armies that like this. Iron Jaws could be one of them. Right? This is not aggressive. This is defensive. And so Iron Jaws are not geared this way. This is more of a... Now that I'm really thinking about it, this is for your Sledge Raker. This is for your Cruel Boys General. If you come into me, I'm going to give you -1 attacks. Don't forget, your opponent has this too, right? So against Cruel Boys, this doesn't seem very good. This seems fine, but then the way to defend against this is to have Bolt Boys be your honor guard. Sorry, have Bolt Boys be in your general's regiment. Right? Because if they're in melee with stuff anyway, they're dead, right? So it's like you getting a bonus to Rend or a bonus to +1 hit, +1 wound doesn't matter because you're killing them anyway. Right? So your general will likely have to unlock Bolt Boys for you to want them to be your general. That's the thing too, right? You're gonna have to build your lists to defend against this. Right? It's like anything that's in your general's regiment, your opponent can have a unit that has +1 to hit, +1 to wound against them. So if your regiment is like whatever, a Maw Crusher and 3 units of Ard Boys, well, your opponent can take their big slappy monster, right, and give it +1 hit, +1 to wound against all your anvils. So you probably want to put things in your regiment that you don't think are going to be fighting, that you can keep safe. Because you're also keeping them safe from this other buff, right? Like Bolt Boys is a perfect example. Or Hobgrots. It's like, okay, have +1 to hit, +1 against 2 units of Bolt Boys and a unit of Hobgrots. Okay. And my general's a shaman in the back. Like, fine. Like, do that. But your Sledge Raker being a general, it's like your opponent can have +1 to hit, +1 to wound against them. From there, like, from the worst unit, from the unit that you would like to have the least. If that makes sense. What else? Anything else that I'm missing here? Been going for about 40 minutes. Thank you so much for sharing this stuff with me. I love going over this stuff. People do complain about the slow drip. Like, they do complain about the slow drip of information, and I understand why. But one of the pros of the slow drip is you get a time to really sort of digest this information a little bit at a time. Like, I spent, no joke, 2 solid days thinking about the Cruel Boys, just the dirty tricks. I thought about them so hard for so long, and I talked to so many people about them, trying to make up my mind what I thought. So now I get these, and I get to really think about them for a bit. And I appreciate y'all joining me. It's always fun to see what other people think. I feel like I'm missing something in special assignment. I feel like is it just bad? Like, am I crazy? Pick a friendly unit in your general's regiment that is not part of that is not your general to be the honor guard. You can pick a unit in reserve. If you use this ability, you cannot use any other honor guard abilities. Picked one of the following weapon abilities. Okay, infantry, +1 Rend. If any turn in which your honor guard charged, that unit's melee weapons have the weapon ability you picked. So Iron Jaws, you put this on a pig, and then you have Smashin' and Bashin'. And this is to help you secure Smashin' and Bashin'. You pick infantry, because you're going to try to clear their screens, right? You're going to hit their battle lines, you're going to hit their infantry, you're going to hit their archers, you're going just for the squishy stuff, and it's to help ensure Smashin' and Bashin'. You pick a unit that's going to get +1 Rend, and then it's going to have that buff, and then your other buffs are going to go into your other units to try to smash and bash the second turn for the second unit in a row. Right? I could see that being good. It's like, all right, so my pigs are going to charge, and they're going to kill the thing. And the next turn, they're going to charge again, and they're going to kill the thing. So if it's infantry, I can see it being good. Infantry's probably going to be the one that gets selected the most. I don't know. We'll see. I have no idea. I think it's going to be super niche. Yeah. Add 1 to hit rolls and wound rolls for attacks made by the honor guard that target any unit in the enemy general's regiment. Cool. I have a unit of Bolt Boys that has +1 hit, +1 to wound against your general and any units and your bodyguard. Even just that. If it just said the general and the bodyguard, okay. right? Like, oh, you're planning on being super, like, whatever, castle-y and marching up the battlefield, then I'm just going to shoot at your general. Like, okay. Like, I'm hitting. And then this one's really good. This is like a defensive come at me bro one. Oh, thank you. Toddler aggro. Okay, well. Oops. This could be used more aggressively. Like you charge a Maw Crush in or whatever, but we'll see. Like, subscribe, well.